Welcome back to another monthly portfolio update video. If you are stopping by for the first time, please do me a favor, subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. In this video, I will share with you how much I invested in January, the number of shares that I bought, and the value of my portfolio at the end of January. But as always, before I continue, a quick disclaimer. The information that I'm sharing is not financial advice. Before you invest in anything, please do your own research and make sure that you only invest in things that you understand. With that being said, I will dive right into my portfolio update. I will start with a quick recap of my December portfolio to show you the value of the portfolio and the number of shares that I had before the beginning of January. The total equity of my portfolio at the end of December was $36,801.69. My portfolio was down $1,343.70. This was a minus 3.52%. These are my holdings, 2 Vanguard ETFs and 2 BlackRock ETFs. The first Vanguard ETF is VCN. This is an ETF that tracks the entire Canadian market, and I had 62 shares of VCN at the end of December. The second Vanguard ETF is VFV. This is an S&P 500 index ETF. Actually, this is the Canadian version of VOO, and I had 210 shares of VFV at the end of December. The first BlackRock ETF is XEQT. This is an all-in-one equity ETF which holds Canadian equities, US equities, developed market equities other than US and Canada, and emerging market equities. And I had 334 shares of XEQT at the end of December. If you want to hold a single equity ETF which is well diversified, you may consider looking into XEQT. The second BlackRock ETF is XUU. This is a US total stock market ETF, and I had 180 shares of XUU at the end of December. I will now show you how much I invested in January and the number of shares that I bought. I bought 2 shares of VCN. The cost per share was $41.74. The total cost, $83.47. This represents 5% of the amount that I invested in January. I bought 10 shares of VFV. The cost per share was $93.70. The total cost, $936.96. This represents 56% of the amount that I invested in January. I bought 10 shares of XEQT. The cost per share was $24.89. The total cost, $248.93. This represents 15% of the amount that I invested in January. I bought 10 shares of XUU. The cost per share was $39.56. The total cost, $395.60. And this is 24% of the amount that I invested in January. In total, I bought 32 shares of the ETFs combined, and the total amount that I invested was $1,664.96. This is minus $293.46, less than the amount that I invested in December. As you can see here quickly, in December I invested $1,958.42, and in January, $1,664.96. The difference is minus $293.46. I will now show you the value of my portfolio and the number of shares that I had at the end of January. The total equity of my portfolio as of January the 31st was $40,361.46. $23,098 was the cash amount, and $40,337.48 was the market value of my investments. At the end of January, my portfolio was up $527.15. This is plus 1.31%. As of January the 31st, I had 64 shares of VCN, 220 shares of VFV, 344 shares of XEQT, and 190 shares of XUU. Let's now take a look at some details about each of the positions. I will start with VCN. The closing market price on January the 31st was $40.05. The quantity of shares that I had, 64. The average price, $40.31. The book value, $2,580.11. This is the amount that I have invested in VCN. The market value was $2,691.20. This is 6.67% of my portfolio. With VCN, I am up 4.31%, or $111.09. Next, we have VFV. The closing market price on January the 31st was $96.16. The quantity of shares that I had, 220. The average price, $95.30. The book value, $20,966.98. The market value was $21,155.20. This is 52.41% of my portfolio. With VFV, I am up 0.90%, or $188.22. Then we have XEQT. The closing market price on January the 31st was $25.57. The quantity of shares that I had, 344. The average price, $24.99. The book value, $8,599.43. The market value was $8,796.08. This is 21.79% of my portfolio. With XEQT, I'm up 2.29% or $196.65. Finally, we have XUU. The closing market price on January the 31st was $40.50. The quantity of shares that I had, 190. The average price, $40.33. The book value, $7,663.81. The market value, $7,695. This is 19.07% of my portfolio. With XUU, I am up 0.41% or $31.19. The stock market did pretty well in January. At the end of January, all my holdings were up. My portfolio went from minus 3.52% at the beginning of January to plus 1.31% at the end of January. For example, the S&P 500 gained 6% in January and the TSX 7%. However, I don't know whether this momentum will last or if it will be short-lived, just as we have seen many times in 2022. And we are still faced with a lot of uncertainties. Inflation is still high, even though it has started coming down both in Canada and in the United States. In December, the inflation rate in Canada was 6.3%, and in the US, it was 6.5%. These inflation rates are still way above the 2% target rate. The Bank of Canada and the US Federal Reserve also continued raising interest rates in January in their fight against inflation. They both raised interest rate by 25 basis points. This brings the interest rate in Canada to 4.50% and 4.75% in the US. This is the 8th time both countries have raised interest rates since March 2022. If central banks manage to engineer a soft landing, we may avoid a recession. If not, these high interest rates may lead us to a recession. Anyway, we're just at the beginning of the year and we'll see what happens the next few months when these interest rates start impacting more and more people and the economy. Personally, whatever happens, if I still have income, I'll stay the course and keep investing consistently. Alright, this brings us to the end of the video. Feel free to leave a comment below. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace out.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign.